Good morning. My name is Bill Pollack, and I'm here with Bill Watkins, a fellow racer, and we're in West Covina, and we're in Bill's workshop. It's July 14th, 2009, and we're sitting in front of an absolutely gorgeous 1948 MGTC. This is
That's
your child?
Yeah. Well, it's
You restored it?
I restored it. It originally belonged to a guy I worked with at Lockheed who passed away, and his widow sold me this car. It was a project for him that he hadn't finished, and I started over on it. But I had to take the body off and go from there. Lots of new parts and lots of body repairs and stuff. It's a 11-year project, you know,
Well,
just working it out.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you.
British Racing Green, of course.
Yes. You know, it did say British Racing Green on the can.
Did it really?
And you know, everything is British Racing Green. I expected something much darker, and but that's the color it came out, and I was pleased with it after we got it on, because it seems to match some of the original TC colors.
It is, yeah, I think that's it.
You think that's British Racing Green?
I think you've got it.
Well, you've seen those Jaguars, the D-types, and they're almost black, you know, and they still call them British Racing Green.
I think they take a little artistic.
Yeah, I
license.
think so. Everything is.
Yeah, with British
Yeah.
Racing. British Racing Green is anything from this to this.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So
we're going to move our setting into to Bill's patio and continue there.
okay. Okay.
All right, well, we're back on, and we are in Bill's beautiful patio, and you were just starting to tell me about some of your adventures back east with the Cooper, and some of those courses that you mentioned, Cumberland and a few others, I'm not really that familiar with.
Actually, I misspoke when I said Cumberland. I raced back there at Connellsville, Pennsylvania, and the first race, maybe three races that they had at Mid-Ohio back in those days.
Well, what was this first one in Pennsylvania? What was it like? You know?
Connellsville was an airport.
Was it an airport?
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, not very exciting. I can't remember any of the details of it, except that it was just a lot of concrete.
Sure, but what about Mid-Ohio? Was that a...
Well, Mid-Ohio was different than it is now. It had a really silly hill, curve at the top of a hill where you had to get down into first gear when you got up there.
That makes no sense at all.
They got rid of that. It's changed a lot. I ran that in the last few years, and it's completely different. But it was a new course, and you know, it was very. Everybody was very enthusiastic about having a race course there.
When did they do Mid-Ohio? When was it?
Well, that was '62.
Okay.
Yeah, or '61 maybe.
Right after Riverside. Right about the same time.
Yeah, probably around that time. Yeah. I was back there working on a project at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, so I went to Lawrenceville, Illinois, or Lawrenceburg. I always get it mixed up. When I was a kid, we went to the one in Indiana to watch the midgets. That's one of the times when I decided I was going to be a racer someday. But this was in Illinois. I went there a couple of times, maybe 3 times, with the Cooper Volvo that I had. And then there was Indianapolis Raceway Park. I went there several times with the Cooper. And everybody was excited about Coopers those days, because that's when Jack Brabham brought one to Indianapolis. And I'd go to get parts and things and say, "What kind of car?" And I said, "A Cooper." "Oh, wow. You're going to race at Indianapolis?" And no. Well, I was, actually, Indianapolis Raceway Park, which is quite different. But they didn't know that. So anyway,
Yeah, Cooper built some really exotic cars.
Yeah, yeah, they were very interesting. And that was my first Cooper. Later in life, I bought a Cooper Bristol in New Zealand, and I ran it over there, and it had a lot of similarities.
Tell me about racing in New Zealand.
Well, New Zealand is just filled with auto racing enthusiasts, the way I see it. The first year I went over there, I took my Arnold Bristol, and my friend Tom Holfelder took his Devon SS, and we actually drove on the road between races all over the South Island. And I would go to a gas station, and people would come and talk to me, and they knew what the car was, even though there had never been an Arnold Bristol in New Zealand before. Right. They would come up and they'd say, "Oh, that's an Arnold Bristol. I always wanted to see one of those."
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way it is there.
So you were either a car racer or a boat racer, whatever.
Yeah, I think so. And
nothing in between.
But they have a number of circuits in New Zealand, that Invercargill and Levels, they call it, Timaru, and
now these are regular circuits.
They're regular circuits. There's Ruapona up at Christchurch, and then they have hill climbs there at Dunedin. They have a street race in Dunedin, which is pretty exciting. They even shut down the freeway and use the freeway for one straightaway. Yeah, and then you go back off an off ramp and around a real tight corner, and you go back up into the hill, and it's exciting course. It's the best street course I've ever been on. And where else? I think there was another course we went to. I can't remember now, but I went over there 4 times. I bought a Cooper Bristol from the brother of my friend, who happens to be sitting right over there.
Oh.
And
who's that?
Beg pardon?
Who was that?
That's Rob Bolt.
Oh,
and
maybe we'll get a chance to talk
he's as he would say, an Allard driver. Allard, and you know Allards very well. And these are all the connections, you know. My friend Dave Camerano bought one of my Arnold Bristols, and he's an Allard driver, and he knew an Allard driver in New Zealand, and when we go to New Zealand, we stay with them, and they come up here and camp out in our backyard.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So most of my connection is matter of fact, most of my friends have owned a Arnold Bristol at one time or another. That's the way this thing works out. I've got about 5 or 6 different friends that were Arnold Bristol owners, and there was only 142 of those cars, and 12 of them burned up in a fire. So, you know, it's kind of amazing.
The rest of them are all friends of yours.
Yeah, and practically everybody that's ever had one and still alive is my friend, and I see them occasionally.
I think that's marvelous. Yeah, that's great. So then, you got into historic racing or something? Didn't you?
I started. Well, I had the Arnold Bristol back in '57, and I couldn't afford to maintain it, and I got rid of it, and I raced MGs for a few years, and then I bought the Cooper as a basket case and put a Volvo engine in it that I had, and I actually completed that back in Ohio, and so I raced it initially at Indianapolis Raceway Park, as I recall, and then Mid-Ohio and Meadowdale up by Chicago and Lawrenceville in Illinois, or Lawrenceburg, I still can't remember. And then I brought it back here and I raced it some, and then I got shipped off to Maryland to work for NASA there for a year I was working for Honeywell at the time, and they sent me back there. And I bought an Elva Formula Junior just to show you, how enthusiastic I was. A race was coming up there, and I ran into Charlie Hayes in a gas station. He had a Ferrari GTO, and he was putting gas in it. And I said, "Do you know any race cars for sale?" And he said, "Yeah, I happen to have a Formula Junior that Mark Donahue used to race, and and he was racing it then, and he was leading the national championship with it." He said, "I'll sell that to you." So I bought it in time to race that week.
Oh my!
But anyway,
You were an addict.
I ran that for quite a while with the little Ford 105 engine in it, that Formula Junior, and then I put an Alpha engine in it and ran a Formula B. And then I kind of retired from racing, and for 66 until 79, when I encountered another Arnold Bristol, and I bought that and started vintage racing. And the first one was at Riverside. It was a HMSA event. And of course I ran the Monterey Historics, which turned out to be 25 times, not all in Arnold's, but 3 different Arnold's. I bought 2 more after that. And,
My goodness gracious.
and the Genie, and I don't know, I guess those are the only ones I ran in the Historics. But
How did you like Monterey?
well, I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun place.
Yeah, I think I like it better than anywhere else. And it's, of course, I've run it so many times that I know just exactly where I ought to be at all times. When I go back east, I go to Watkins Glen or Mid-Ohio or any place now, and I'm a little bit lost out there because I don't know exactly where the line should be, and I don't spend enough time to really find them. But Monterey, I got that down pat, So I enjoyed that a lot.
You know exactly where to be to get into the corkscrew.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because that's really this one good entry point, and
Yeah,
if you're there, that's fine. If you're not, then
yeah.
that's when your hair stands up.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I enjoy that a lot.
Oh, sounds like you've had an exciting career.
Well, it was fun. Like I said before, I was very enthusiastic. I was kind of an adrenaline junkie, and I got over it finally. And I tried to quit for a couple of years because I knew I wasn't enjoying it as much as I had. And then I did. I quit in the U.S. in '03, and then my friend from New Zealand had a car for me to race in New Zealand in '04, and I raced it. And then
What kind of a car?
it's called a Fury, and it has a one of those BOP aluminum V8s in it. Yeah, that was fun. And that was the end of it, though.
Was it really?
Well, I didn't race after that at all.
So you're.
He just offered me a ride in it yesterday, and I turned him down.
Oh no! Oh. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's been good visiting with you.